Hi there, my name is Jacco van der Kooi. I'm the founder of Winning by Design. And today I'm going to share with you some of the exciting developments in sales. So come on the journey with me. It is not my goal to either convince you or to push you in a certain direction. All I want you to see is the great opportunity that lies ahead of us. And that is where we're going to get started today. What is that opportunity? Now, what we have seen historically is that over the past years in sales, we've seen that the place of where we are doing business has changed. You may have heard me talk about this before. This place no longer is important. We call it remote selling. But what we see generally is that everything we need to do in person no longer is needed. It is out of there. We are now doing these things online. They will come back sooner or later, but not to the same extent that we've been used to. Everything we have done, the place has become independent. We're working from home. In my case, the backyard. We can work on the road. We can work from, people are renting vans to work from. You can work from an Airbnb. This is a great new approach. And particularly marketing, sales, and customer success are functions that are benefiting immensely from this. Now, what we see in 2021 is a changing this. This is the year that we are going to see not only that the place of where we do business is changing, but more so that actually the place and the time of doing business is changing. And that is something that I believe is of huge impact. We're going to see this have an impact all across the things that where we're at, okay? Now, what we see, what do I mean with that time? What I mean is that if we look historically at time, we have built our tools in an effort to match that. Our tools are mapped to tools that can give an urgent and important message to all the way low urgency and low important messages. Now, when I grew up over the years in the 1990s and in sales and during the early 2000s, we came out of that period with the phone being the most important and urgent thing you can get. And for many of us, this still is when we recognize the number. When a family member is calling, or when my wife calls twice, for example, when I'm in a meeting, I am going to rush to that and respond to her knowing that something may be up with our children. So this phone is important and urgent. Similarly, we've noticed that social media in that field was actually considered low of importance. Like, why are you on social media? Sounds all familiar. I'm not going to go too deep into you with this. Many of you who see this have been already lived on that doctrine where I'm about to share with you. What we noticed is that phone has become less important. And the world of phones that we live in, we just simply see that people are not picking them up anymore. I myself pick up no phone number that I don't recognize. At the same time, we see that the forms of social media have increased in importance. Again, no surprise, all of us spend a lot of time. Now, we may spend this in different media. So some of us may spend that in Facebook and others on LinkedIn, some of that on Instagram, others on TikTok. We all have our social media of choice. We are so often on those platforms, we consider responding to those as very important and urgent. So for example, since Twitter is based on a timeline, if a question is asked, I know I got to respond quickly to that request before it dies down. It has itself a form of urgency. What we also notice that email, as we are continuing, is becoming less and less of importance. We just simply see that emails today are no longer having the same sense of urgency as they once had. In my own world, I actually are only using email like once or twice a day. And I do on set windows that I respond to that. I can no longer live in email. And so for me, email has become a lower importance and urgency. And I don't think I'm the only one in this. I think others experience that same thing. Now, what we see though is that email and phone calls, they are essentially less immediate, less contextual, and less accountable than they once were. We notice that LinkedIn, Facebook, and social media has a form of immediacy in it because we are so often on those platforms. Also, not responding in front of the public view to a certain article or to a certain comment being placed creates a certain accountability. Also, what we notice is whenever you are on a platform, it shows you great contacts. I can on Twitter, I can read somebody on Twitter and see what do they talk about. It gives me a form of context. On LinkedIn, obviously, great context. Which companies do you work for? Facebook, what is your personal background? These are areas of context that are lacking with email and phone calls. Now, what we see is there's an improvement in this field. Doesn't mean that we are no longer going to use phone calls and emails. No, we will. But we see that WhatsApp is a form where we're starting to add context to it. We are not only going to leave, like a voice call, but you can leave text messages, photos, and whatnot. Same thing with email. If you look at, for example, Superhuman, it creates a way more useful way of managing email. And we're going to use that extensively over the years. What we now noticed is that the rise of tools that are independent of time and place. We see this, for example, last year as we moved all to the online meetings, whether it was Microsoft Teams, whatever we used for that, we started to become really comfortable with online meetings. Now, what we see today with meetings, we no longer have to wait for meetings if we really don't want to. We can use the exact same equipment to record a video session. What you see, for example, tools like Loom, BombBomb, Soapbox, Vidyard, all allow you to create a high quality video experience as if it is a meeting. Now, what you'll see is that these tools have become, you no longer need a meeting due to these tools. We can actually create something. And some of you have seen my earlier videos that where I allude on this. I demonstrate yet how to do it. We also see that meetings were great places where we can whiteboard together, scratch. It was a wonderful experience, right? You sit there, suddenly somebody steps up, picks up the markers and heads to the whiteboard. We love that experience. We today can do that with tools like Mural, for example, and Klaxoon. And if you look at Mural, other people can contribute to the conversation. They can start adding to it. And no longer is it only the one who has the marker who controls the whiteboard. Everybody has a voice, a great experience. What we see is that we no longer have to wait for that experience. If you really want to just do that and do it interactively, that is a great experience, but you don't have to wait for all of them to show up. Some of you are already extremely familiar with that. In a Google Doc that we all work together on can be asynchronous. We no longer have to wait for the meeting to do it. You can add your comments, you can make your edits. And at the same way, we are essentially as similar the way how Loom and Vidyard, Soapbox and BombBomb have made us independent of time and place. So does a shared document now make us independent of time and place to work together. What we see, what they all have in common is those above the line are becoming immediacy, contextual and accountable with an independence of time and place. This is a new world of thinking. And if I apply that to day in, day out operation, you're going to see how it started to change. And I want to give some advisory down here. Be ready because I am going to show something special. Yes, we have a tune for that. Now, what I'm demonstrating down here is the way on how I recently worked in closing a significant deal. In this deal, what we noticed and closed, okay? I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to give some context on that. So what do I mean with that is in this case, my client came to me Lily to me personally, came to me having already seen the video on YouTube, read our research on LinkedIn, and checked us out on G2 Crowd. As I was talking to that person that night, a C-level officer at a Fortune 2000 company, we were chatting at 9 o'clock at night, going back and forth, and it was at a high pace. She even asked me for the price and the lead time. All the difficult questions were addressed right then and there. However, towards the end of that conversation, we agreed that we needed to schedule a discovery call. And that discovery call, the scheduling of that and the exchange of emails, put everything back into a snail space mode. I now had to go back, schedule, she had to find the people who need to be on. The email between her and I was sent quick enough, but for everybody to get on the schedule took quite a while. It took days. For me, that's quite a while. For some people, they go like, oh my gosh, you got the meeting that same week. That's great. Yeah, but I'm like, why not have it right now? What we noticed following that discovery call, we had a 1 hour discovery call. It was a little bit more, 75 minutes. And I recorded a 10 minute to be honest, a 10-minute video on that. And that 10-minute shorter video, that was the one that was distributed in the company. Why? Because that 75-minute video is too long for, in this case, that person and everybody else on the team to watch. But a 5 to 10-minute video is not. And so that 5 to 10-minute summary video started to exist inside the company and became more important than the 75-minute recording of the call. This not happened once, this happened twice. And so we have these 10 to 15-minute assets that give a high density, but that are shot post the meeting. Well, this gives you a great advantage. You can learn during the meeting and record it and then share it post-meeting. That provides us with great advantage. As we move forward, we were headed into the need in order to do an assistance and like assisting a sale and going into an RFP. I have to tell you, when I have when I hear like an RFP, I'm like, ooh, that probably is going to take us a lot of times, often months on end. Now, at this point in time, we're about 2-3 weeks into the conversation, and I did not want to add another 2 months to this. However, what had happened, and this is a great thing, okay? What happened was that the team, because of all these assets that were living online, was asynchronously updating themselves behind the scenes. They had watched the videos and they've gone through the same experience. So no longer did we have to jump back and step into the discovery and the demo of an entire team. What came out is we went straight, and I mean straight, to the proposal stage. We went straight to a meeting where all the stakeholders stepped into the meeting and we had a conversation. They had already seen the videos, already read all the stuff. We came at the end of that meeting. It wasn't said to me, but I felt it. And a few days later, I got a no-go moving forward. You may ask and say, Jocko, why is that a success story? Because that only took me 4 weeks. This entire massive company contacting us and wanting to go with us or looking at us, like if 4 weeks is a relatively low point in time. If I had to push this company with an RFP through and everything, it would have cost me an additional 2, 3, 4 months. It would have taken me so long. What this shows is that the tools accelerated it. And that is something I want to take a look at closer. What I'm going to give you is an advisory to let you fully know and be aware that what about to come is futuristic, okay? Violins are playing. This is futuristic. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say and take that same process. That process, in this case, a 5-stage process. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to map that same stage 5 process. I'm going to say like, hey, here's how we think that customers buy. They come in through like an email and then they end up, like committing, and then I get a commitment via an email or something like that, right? Oh, your document was signed email. Essentially what really happens is this. Customers not necessarily start at the same spot. They don't necessarily go in one direction, and they're not necessarily follow the process that you have. This is the realization of how customers really are buying. And what we're doing is we are forcing them to buy this way. We're forcing all, it doesn't matter, you've done your research. I need to do my research as a seller. So why don't I put you through the discovery part of the business? And that is so tough for them. What if, yes, what if we do something different here? Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some mystery. So I'm going to add the mystery tune to it. Here comes the mystery. What if I remove the thought that we think in stages and no longer think in stages, but instead start thinking in actions? And what if I move those actions out of sequence and move them in a circle? Yeah. Now what if I map that traditional trajectory what we just had? That would look something like this, our normal path. But that is not our only path, right? You see, there are other paths. And what this graph shows is all the other paths that are there, the other ways of how customers can traverse. And not only that, it shows that they don't have to start at the discovery call. They can start anywhere and go any direction. This is a customer-centric way of looking at this. These kind of paths and this node-based graph that you see down here is a more accurate reflection of that. What you will see in this reflection, if I map to the tools, you'll see that no longer do I need to go into the full assist series of meetings here. This assist may be a reference call, maybe a deep dive on the product. I can actually think another way of doing that. I could use videos pre-recorded. I can use YouTube crowd reviews. I can use Vidjar to Loom videos. I could find other ways. I not only have to enter always at the discovery call via an email, I may actually come in right at that point in time with a LinkedIn message. I may go out and say like, hey, I had a great discovery call and tweet about it. I may have already seen your discovery call and learned what your product does and going straight into demonstration. I want to see a demo customized to my needs. I may have done research online at ResearchGate and learned more about your product. All these things are alternative paths. What we are seeing is that essentially things have changed. This change, this radical change that has happened, that is what I want to talk to you about. This radical change that we are now experiencing is the radical thing that I want to share with you because something happened. What we noticed is that historically in sales, we obey to a process, a 5-stage process, certain 5-letter acronyms, 6-letter, 7-letter acronyms, 4-letter acronyms. We follow that process, and that drive the actions we take. And then those actions, we use tools to take those actions. What we are now seeing, it is going up on its head. Tools are now dictating the actions we're taking. And the word dictating is too wrong. Tools are the ones that are driving a new kind of actions. Those new kind of actions are driving a new workflow, and that new workflow is driving a new process. This is what we're seeing. Tools that are causing displacement of we no longer need to work at an office. We no longer need to be at your office to meet with customers and buyers. We no longer need to do that. We can work anywhere. And not only that, we can work anytime. We can work at night, in the morning. I can go running in the afternoon using the great weather while everybody is enjoying their post-lunch let down of the energy, right? I'm going to go running. And then I can come back at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night for a half an hour or an hour and do more work. I am working independent of place and time. And I do that with tools that provide me great context. This is a brand new way of us looking at what is essentially happening. And I want you to think about what that is and what it does. Why? Because this is not the first time we have gone through this. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been through this a couple of times. You see down here a picture of the Industrial Revolution. This is when machines changed the process. Which machines, tools started to redefine the actions we are taking. And those new actions started to change the process we were taking. Folks, we're experiencing that very same thing right now. In sales, we are in the middle of an industrial revolution. Because of these tools that are coming at us in sales are changing the way the actions we take, the workflow we take, and as a result, it changes the process we take. And we do that in response to the buyer who is changing our behavior on that. We don't do that to sell more. We are helping our buyers to buy more effectively. This is an understanding because as you see, and as you will look up on, I encourage you to look up on Wikipedia or what happened during the revolution, and you will read something like this. And join me in reading this, okay? Okay, what you see when you've read it, have you read this? This is like, oh my gosh, this is change management. What you see down here, average income and population began to exhibit unprecedented, sustained growth. Look at that. How more important can this be? We are experiencing right now an industrial revolution that is caused by new and modern tools that are changing the actions and as a result that are changing the process. We're in the middle of it, probably at the start of it, but we are so close to it. Our nose is so close to it that it's hard to see. But if you take a step back, then you see what this really is. This is an enormous revolution that we're part of. This is the way how we are not only changing selling in response to the buyer, but how buyers are changing the way they buy. And with that, I want to thank you very much for being here with me. I want to welcome all of you who attended SaaStock and enjoyed that conference. With that said, I want to say thank you. Look us up on LinkedIn. Look me up on LinkedIn. Look me up on Twitter. Look me up on all the media where you like. I am loving to share content like this nonstop on behalf of my company, Winning by Design. And with that said, I want to wish you all a great and happy day.